hi there. We're just going to talk about some of the advanced functions you could add to your race car game. So at the moment, this is the game that we've got. We've got a couple of coins to pick up. We've got our enemy and we've got our normal player car. What I've done already to start with is I've improved the control system. Now, before we were just using when key press block and then the motion blocks. I've got a slightly improved control system that we used in the original race car game. And this just gives you better control, to be fair, over the car. It moves more smoothly. You can technically push 2 keys at once. That's what allows it to happen. So if I just run the game, you'll see that it just moves more smoothly. So that could be added to any game in order to get smoother controls. So that's the first thing. Now, I mentioned a number of things we could do to make the game more effective. One of the things would be nice to have is a win screen or a lose screen. So what we can do here is we have to go to the stage here because this involves the whole game. And we're going to be relating it based on the variables. So when the variables get to a certain number, we want something to happen. So the first things first, I'm going to do this quite quickly. I'm going to go to my backdrop. I'm going to add 2 new backdrops. I'm going to call one called you win. I'm going to convert it to a bitmap so I can use the fill tool. Doesn't really matter what color it is, but we'll just keep it consistent. Nice and green. And then I'm just going to use the text tool. Let's say keep it red. And we're just going to have you win. You can then resize this by grabbing hold of it. Okay, so there's my you win screen. I'm going to name this win because that's important. Make sure that things are named correctly. I am going to duplicate this and then I'm going to make one called lose and I'm just going to edit the text. Now, unfortunately, when you work in bitmap mode, you can't just simply edit the text. You have to erase it. So let's just erase the bit I don't need. What I should have done was made the green background, copy it, and then do it twice. But, of course, we have done what we have done. Then I'm going to use the fill tool to fill it. Now, I want to make sure I get green. So I'm just going to use the color picker tool. I'm going to go back here just to make sure I get the same red. I'm just going to pick the red color and then go back here, use the text tool, and I'm just going to put you lose. Click away, and then I can drag it out. So there you go. I've got my win and lose screen, and then, of course, I've got my backdrop as well. Okay, we've got my original backdrop. I can technically delete this, but I'm just going to keep it in there for now. And we need to do a little bit of coding and initialization now because we need to make sure when the game starts, we're on the correct background. So under looks, we've got background information. It's worth noting out when you're on stage, you do have less tools. There's no motion blocks because the background can't move, the stage can't move. So I'm just going to make sure when we initialize, we're going to switch background to backdrop 2, which is my example. This is backdrop. Also, backdrop 2 is this one. Backdrop 1 is what we want. That's why naming is important. So switch backdrop to backdrop 1. That will set the game up correctly. Then what we want to happen is we want to switch to the lose and the win when a certain situation is met. So let's go to our events blocks. We're going to have this as a green flag. We want a if statement. We want this twice. And basically what we want to know is when the score gets to a certain number, we win, and when the lives get to a certain number, we lose. So I need my variables. So I'm going to grab lives and score. We need these 2 bits out. And then we need some operators. So the operators is we're going to do some comparisons. So is equal to. So when lives is equal to and when score is equal to. So if lives is equal to 0, we want to say we lose. And if the score is, say, for the example here, it's going to be 4 because we collect everything. Yep. Then we're going to switch the background to win. Now this also still needs to be in a repeat loop because we're checking this all the time and we need to keep checking. So this should work if we click start. So score is 0. If I collect all of these, can I do it without being hurt? Ah. Oh, there you go. So unfortunately there, because I was touched in that corner, it's a bit of a quirk of the game that when it resets to that corner. So I've got minus 16 lives, which works perfectly. That's correct. Shows it works properly. That is a bit of a bug that you do need to look at how to resolve that. And that's to do with timing. So how often can it do it? Oh, okay. Anyway, right. I keep dying, but that's fine. The basic idea works. So I've got a win screen and a lose screen. If we can, of course, get it winning. Can I get the win screen to work? One last try. One last try. Make the win screen work. Yes, there you go. Win screen. Cool. So you can win and lose. Okay. So that's one element you can expand on. You can do more with that if you want to. You could add a start screen, and the way we work with the start screen is you'd have to change all the green flag clicks um, to a broadcast. So broadcast is under here. So when you receive a certain message, say start. So you'd have a screen, a backdrop that pops up. So click here to start. You might have the rules. When you click in a certain location, it broadcasts the message. So that's a bit more of an involved rebuild, but that's the basics around it. You'd be swapping out most of the green flags. You'd have one green flag to start the game off. The other thing that's fairly quick to do is it's quite easy if these are always in the same place. So what you can do is you can create a script so this will randomly appear, because at the moment they're hard coded. I'd say they're only supposed to go in one place. So there is something you can do to make it be more random. Now, this bit we're going to keep that as it is. It's this piece here that we need to change around. So we're just going to do it on one. So I'm just going to bring that down. This is the sensing bit. This is going to know it vanishes. That's the important bit. Okay. Now this is the randomness of it. So we want this to happen at a certain point. But instead of going to a specific location, we want it to go to a random position. That's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But eagle-eyed people among you will go, oh, wait a second, though. If I have a random position, so if I keep clicking this, it's going to move around. But occasionally it's going to go on the green. And the car can't go on the green. So it would be impossible to complete the game. Okay? So what we need to do, we need to add an extra little thing in there to make sure that it is going to go to a random position, but if it's on green, it has to change position again. Okay, so we're going to have a block called repeat until. So it's going to keep doing something until a condition is met. So we are going to go sensing, and we basically want to go. So it's going to go to a random position, but then it's going to keep checking this. Like, am I on grey? If I'm on grey, if I'm on green, I need to move. Okay, so I'm going to repeat until we're on the grey. So if I touch in color, use the little color picker. So it's going to repeat doing this until we touch the color grey. And of course, what it's going to repeat doing is going to keep going to a random position. You have to tell it to go to a random position initially and then run this. So now, when I click this, you can't see it, but it might move more than once. So it appears that it works, but it should be fine. So now as you move it around, it's never going to be on the green. If it goes on the green, it will move, and it's going to move so fast that you can't see it. So now you've got these two bits of code together that will allow the coins, in this case, to ensure they appear on the grey area. When you're adding more coins, if we're always working from the same one, this code will come across, and it makes it a bit easier to duplicate the coins. It's always worth doing this when you're creating these sprites, especially when you've got lots of them. Start with one, get one working, and then you can get the other things done. The only other thing we can quickly talk about is if you want to try and increase the difficulty of the game, this would involve creating a new variable for speed, because that's how you're going to increase the difficulty. So if I make a new variable called speed, it would have to be for all sprites. Over time, you'd want that to increase. Okay, you probably would want this hidden. You don't need it on screen. I just did score. I mean speed. You don't really need it on screen. But basically, what you'd have is you'd set speed to a certain amount at the beginning of the game. So let's set speed to, let's say 5, and then we'd have a little script that over time it would increase the speed. So, for example, we'd have something like this. When Grieveland clicks, because again, this would start, it would be in a forever loop, because of course it would be something that would have to keep running. And what you would do is you'd wait a certain amount of time. So under events, we've got wait. So if we wait 10 seconds, and every 10 seconds we're going to increase the speed by 1. So change speed by 1. So if I just get the speed on the thing, so if we just run it, just run this bit. So we're going to have to wait 10 seconds. But over time, every 10 seconds, this number should go up. There you go. So it's gone up by 1. So if we start the game at 5, it will have gone up to 6. So if I run this now, that's going to start slowly going up. I'm going to untick it for now because I know what it's doing. But what you've got to do is apply this to one of the objects. So what you do is under here, where it says move, you just simply drag in speed. So now that is going to start changing. So over time, the enemy car will slowly get faster. You could do the same thing for your own car as well. You could put steps in here. A bit more complicated for the player car because you've got speed in a couple of different places. Hopefully that's enough to give you some inspiration to continue to improve your game. And I hope to see some interesting creations.